Te reo ererangi o te mānia. This episode was produced in Otatahi by Plains Media, with support from New Zealand On Air.
Kia ora and welcome, haere mai, to Emergence News. My name is Nigel and it's great to have your company. Thank you for joining us on this podcast from Plains Media in Christchurch, New Zealand, Aotearoa. And in the studio are Peter. Hi, Peter.
Hi there, Nigel.
Hi there, John.
Good morning, people.
Now, you're in process of having your coffee hit.
Yeah, I'm having
You're a
my
bit
first
late.
coffee of the day. I'm running late this morning. Missed out on some of my rituals, and I'm a man of ritual. And so arriving here without a coffee, I was feeling a little shaky, a little faint, and older than Peter, really. But now that I've had a nasty little instant coffee, I'm starting to feel a bit better.
Yeah, who made you the coffee?
But your darling wife,
Yes.
Lily, and our only full-time listener. Yeah, hold on, I'm just going to have a slurp.
Now, you have to be careful there, John. You've just insulted poor old Moss. Do you remember Moss?
Yeah, Moss.
In the States?
Sorry to our other listeners, but,
Yeah.
but Lily is our fangirl.
She is, and she's like a silent producer,
Yes.
isn't she? Yeah, we might have to include her just for 10 seconds on our Christmas reunion. And I'm letting the cat out of the bag, but we've got a very special Christmas program lined up this year in late December. Look forward to that. More details coming on that as we get closer to the time. Now, on our last podcast, Peter, you did a reading on glamour. And Peter, I remember you saying at the time that glamour is the result of humanity's journey during Atlantean times, when humanity's goal was the perfecting of the astral emotional consciousness.
That's right, yes. Yes, the Lemurian one was about developing the physical bodies, and Atlantean about the emotional body. And the current age, if you like, is about developing our mental abilities.
Okay, so developing our mental abilities to become more mentally polarised, is that the ticket, John?
Yes.
Yeah, but you've kind of just enlivened in me a little bit, Peter, that this is why it's so difficult to shed or move away from this attachment to glamour, because it's our next evolutionary step. It's not just, get over it. No. It's actually a major shift in the conscious focus of the race.
That's right. It will bypass propaganda, in actual fact.
Exactly.
Which is in the midst of what we're living in now.
Yeah, we are. Not only are we individually awash with glamour, but the forces of materialism on this planet, oligarchy, and the wealthy that are controlling this planet and are struggling to hang on to this planet, they are using glamour to keep us enthralled. So they have discovered the most powerful tool on the planet.
That's how they get elected.
Right, which is to poke us in our glamour region, so fear, to manage our fear, to push our fear. So it's a huge challenge for humanity to move from this astral polarisation to a mental polarisation.
That's right.
And developing the mental polarisation, it's about lifting the focus from the solar plexus up through the heart to the Ajna Centre.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
So you can understand why meditation has become such a important ingredient in personal development.
Look, I think the lifestyle information that's coming out now at a phenomenal rate from research around benefits of exercise, benefits of sleep, benefits of nutrition, benefits of looking after the physical vehicle to become that platform to leap through into the next stage, I think is really important. So you're looking after your physical and emotional structures is critical at this time so that we can make that next leap.
And it's quite tantalising, isn't it? You know, if you hear a author like Benjamin Creme say a closer relationship between the soul and its reflection, that's the physical body, is through meditation. It's through developing the antakarana so that we are become more soul infused.
It's no coincidence that meditation has gone from absolute weirdos, you know, hippies and people with long beards and long hair sitting cross-legged in the grass somewhere, to mainstream. Meditation is mainstream now. That's no coincidence, because meditation is one of the tools that we're going to use to carry us away from that astral polarization.
Even in the schools.
Oh, and transcendental meditation has run programs in schools for years, all over the world.
Mental polarization, according to Creme, until we are about a 1.5, 1.6 initiate, that's when the connection with the soul becomes stronger and we're less influenced by the astral centre. Is that correct?
So, Peter, I've never really quite understood that. So, you're right, Nigel. Creme has said that once you get to about 1.5 point of initiation, that you start to become mentally polarised. But really, it's the second degree initiation that will cement that, isn't it?
That's right. You're heading towards it at that point. Yeah.
So there must be some flip.
Yes.
Quite a way out from the port of success that we're sailing towards, right?
Yes, but I think once people get to 1.5, it's a lot quicker, generally, to get that last 0.5 up to 2.
Yeah.
As we know, once they're a second degree initiate, they can get through to become a master within 3 lifetimes, possibly.
Nigel, when we've looked at the list of initiates, there's a real gap between 1.3 and about 1.7, and the 1.7s are becoming really creative. They are leaders, they're writers, they are thinkers. Influencers. And there's almost a little bit of a gap between 1.4 and 1.7.
It's a tough part of the journey in there, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is.
But you know, the longest journey, Peter, is getting to the first initiation, isn't it? We have thousands of lifetimes.
Oh. Yes, that's right. It's just a tremendous journey, but it's lucky that we don't remember them all, because we'd be inundated and we'd be flooded with them.
Well, it would be depressing, wouldn't it?
Well, you look like you'd gone backwards when you first walked into the studio this morning, John.
I have regressed.
You've had some problems this week.
I've had a tough week. But, it's been interesting, Peter, around that movement between, as you say, it takes thousands of lifetimes to get to 1, but there is a huge effort to get from 1 through to second degree. First degree through to second degree.
Yes, I think that's generally true. There's a third degree soul might have, a different take on that, and because they have more difficulty perhaps with the third initiation. But generally speaking, most people tend to have this trouble on the first to the second.
I think I read from memory, and I've only just started my first coffee for the day, that I think that Creme has said between the first and second initiation can be as many as 13 lifetimes.
Yeah.
Somewhere between 7 and 13, I think.
Yeah.
Because Peter said you can get through there in half a dozen lifetimes if you behave yourself.
And apparently listening to Emergence News really speeds up that accelerates that evolutionary process. And I think that we've had people
really
go between 1 and 2 very quickly just by listening to Emergence News.
Right, let's change the subject. Look, before we move on to the glossary of esoteric terms, I wanted to just get your thoughts from both of you on the law of sacrifice, because this was another subject that we touched on the last program, which was esoteric facts and stats. What a great episode that was. Gosh, I listen back to it and I'm learning something each time, and I think, was I involved in that conversation? It was tremendous. And we talked about the quote, or the definition of an avatar and how they descend.
Yes.
And you talked about, well, I asked you, is it a difficult journey for an avatar or a cosmic avatar to descend back to Earth? And you said, well, it's not really a backward step, it's really an act of sacrifice.
Yeah.
And, of course, there is the law of sacrifice, isn't there?
That's right.
And if we do not sacrifice, this is according to Benjamin Creme.
The Art of Cooperation.
Straight out of the book, word for word. If we do not sacrifice, we do not evolve. Everyone wants to evolve, but no one wants to sacrifice themselves in doing so. But even avatars make a sacrifice, and therefore it is a great act of service to humanity and the lower kingdoms.
That law of sacrifice, I mean, I'm sitting here thinking, I hope our listeners don't think we've got to flail ourselves or we've got to be doing some really awful sacrifice. The key idea in it that I really like is Benjamin Creme talks about you've got to give up the lower for the higher, right? You've got to give up the lower for the higher. So apply that to your life. And if you have some degree of honesty and sincerity, and remember that with this evolutionary process, you've got to have a little bit to get a little bit, right? So if you've got some honesty, you'll be aware in your life habits, there's a couple of things that you really should get over. There'll be a couple of things you really need to stop doing.
Coffee, chocolate.
Yeah, you know, and no, chocolate's good, and so's coffee. But you know, there are those little things you've really probably got to get over your sex addiction. You've really probably got to stop watching too much YouTube or TV. You've really probably got to pick up a few more disciplines. You know, you've got to let go of some of that stuff that you know on some level is holding you back.
You are listening to Emergence News, and on today's program, John is going to revisit the glossary of esoteric terms, which can be found on the Share International website. And if you've got any of Benjamin Creme's books in your library, there's a glossary in quite a few of those volumes.
Yeah.
What are you looking at today, John?
Well, interestingly enough, I looked at initiation yesterday when I was thinking about what we're going to do, and we've already talked about initiation, and it's probably the topic that if we sat and talked on esoteric teachings, we always come back to initiation. So I've got the definition of initiation in front of me. And I'm going to throw a couple of ideas at you, Peter, because there's some ideas in here that caught me a little bit off guard. So, glossary of esoteric terms, initiation, a voluntary process whereby successive and graded stages of unification and at-one-ment take place between the man or woman in incarnation, his or her soul, and the divine monad or spark of God. Each stage confers on the initiate a deeper understanding of the meaning and purpose of God's plan, a fuller awareness of his or her part in that plan, and an increasing ability to work consciously and intelligently towards its fulfillment. Now, the word that caught me, Peter, was a voluntary process.
Yes, well, I mean, if you go back to when we first came from Venus, if you like, our soul is part of this great oversoul. And, of course, that is 18.5 million years ago. And so we volunteered at that point to be part of it.
Of a long experiment.
So it's going back a fair way. And, of course, there were those that chose not to.
Yes.
And I think it was probably like a third of people that were able to participate or not, and 2/3 decided, yes, we will come.
The law of free will,
Yes.
it's truly a law of the solar system.
It's a law of cosmos.
Yes.
And it's free will as well. Okay, not only, Peter, is it this great historic agreement that we all made to come to this planet and start humanity here, but it's also an act of free will. And I guess it gets back to what we started with, Nigel, which is sacrifice. Because to take the next initiation, you've got to give up the lower to take the higher. Right? So you've talked about sacrifice, Nigel. You've talked about the voluntary decision we all made to start incarnation here on this planet. Yeah. And so that's a deeply tied up process with this process of initiation. You've got to give up the lower for the higher, and we volunteered, but it's also an act of free will.
It is, indeed.
Well, Peter's taken us a long way back in history. You know, back then, the moon was probably a live entity.
Well, you know, the moon chain, in actual fact, probably went before that, I think. You know, millions of years are not... are very much more like minutes rather than on the cosmic scale.
And I think Benjamin Krem's talked about the moon as the staging post before humanity came down on this planet. So it did have a role back in the day. But this initiation, it's incredible. Now, the other thing that Krem has said about initiation is this 5 steps of initiation that we have. The first initiation is to some degree of mastery over the physical. The second degree initiation is some degree of mastery over the emotional. The third degree is some degree of control and exercising will over the mind.
And soul
and soul connection. And then there's the fourth and fifth initiation. Krem has said that that's the experiment used on this planet. That other planets have a different process for the evolution of spirit into matter. Right. That's just the system we're using on planet Earth.
And it sounded like
I found that really mind-boggling.
And it sounded like on the last episode when you guys talked about Krishna introducing us to the second initiation.
Yeah. Second degree, yep.
Because according to the masters, really the first true initiation is the third initiation.
Yes.
So the first 2 initiations are a relatively recent...
there's sort of minor initiations as far as the masters are concerned.
Preparatory stuff.
The third initiation is the first spiritual initiation, really.
Yeah, I guess the first and the second are actually demonstrating to the observing masters...
commitment.
Yeah, but you can get yourself together. You know, there's a degree of control being exercised before we're going to give you the keys for the castle.
Yeah, true intent.
You know, you're not getting your hands on anything until you can behave yourself.
And you can be trusted.
And managing your physical desires and your emotional awfulness, because I'm going to talk about awfulness when we get to glamour, that's got to be, you're not letting you into the classroom until you can behave yourself, really. And interestingly enough, a lot of military groups nowadays will have a pre-course, right? So they'll get you in, put you through a pre-course before they'll put you on the pre-course, before they'll put you on the course, right? So it's almost as though military groups are saying, hold on, we need to have a good look at you before we'll even let you get onto our pre-course, before we'll even let you get onto our course. I find that really interesting. Oh. It's almost like chaff and wheat, weeding it out earlier and earlier. And for me, the first and second initiation are like that. You've got to be able to do the pull-ups before we'll let you come and join the team, you know? Interesting.
Otherwise you'll cause yourself an injury and others.
And waste our time.
It's all about responsibility, isn't it?
Yeah, and as we know, the masters do not waste any energy.
All right, John.
Okay.
You've looked at initiation.
Yes.
You said you were going to revisit glamour.
Yes, I know. But before I do glamour, I'm going to revisit astral, just so that everybody listening understands what we're talking about. So the astral plane, right? Glamour, emotion, and astral all reference the same
terminology.
The same, and also that same energy field that we're accessing. Okay, so astral, The astral body is, as according to the esoteric glossary of terms, the astral body is the emotional vehicle of an individual, and the astral plane, the plane of the emotions, including the polar opposites such as hope and fear, sentimental love and hate, happiness and suffering. He finishes by saying the astral plane is the plane of illusion. Right, so then I've launched into page 69 of The Art of Cooperation. Cream talks about the problem of glamour, but this is from the Master. Of all the problems which beset humanity, there is none greater than the problem of glamour. It provides the basis for all our difficulties and dangers, and holds the vast majority of humanity in thrall. It is the root of every division and cleavage, and the source of every dimension of pain and suffering. It has its roots in the ancient past of mankind, and all but a very few are held under its sway.
That's interesting. If you read The Art of Happiness by the Dalai Lama, he talks about all this stuff in association with suffering.
Letting it go.
Because suffering, of course, is a key component of Buddhism.
Yes, yep. And in fact, in this section, the problem of glamour, Benjamin Cream touches on Buddhism and the Buddhist approach. Anyway, the Master goes on to say, essentially, glamour originates in man's sensuous feeling apparatus, the emotional or astral body. And that's the second degree initiation, remember, when we overcome it. The Master goes on to say, and in man's identification with its action, so the emotional or astral body and our identification with it. Through wrong identification with his feelings and emotions, his desire nature, he has surrounded himself with and lost himself in thick fogs of illusion and unreality. This constitutes the glamour in which most people live out their lives. Glamour is illusion on the plane of the emotions and provides the greatest obstacle to progress for the individual and for the race. It throws a multitude of misconceptions across the path of the unwary, and the loftiest idealist is no freer from its influence. Nay, he is frequently more prone than the hardened cynic. And there's a little bit of a warning there from the Master. So even when you think you're onto the right idea, even when you think you've grasped it, man, what I'm thinking is the best, you're wrong. Right? It's glamour. So this is a message for all of those people that are supporting certain political parties out there. There's a good chance you're wrong. Right? That's glamour. It leads us down the wrong pathways. And it's so delightful. It's so gorgeous when you get onto some glamorous idea. Oh, I'm right. Man, I feel so good I'm right. You know, it's awful stuff. I'm going to just cut through this a little bit. The Master goes on to say, what can be done to free humanity from this ancient thraldom? In part innate in the nature of substance itself. I don't quite get that. It's almost as though he's saying that glamour is part of the substance of nature. And I wonder if that's to do with our attraction to matter and our belief in the reality of matter.
Yes, and it could be the matter of our own vehicles as
right.
well.
Because Cream has talked about you're either focused on your emotions, your mind or your body as you try and struggle through this glamour.
And the goal is to get over yourself and think of group work.
Yeah,
because that is the goal of the Aquarian Age, is group work.
And every time I
Forget yourself.
Yeah, every time I look at you, Peter, and think you're 120 years old, that kind of statement makes me think you might be a couple of thousand years old, because the Master says just that. He goes on to say, how can man free himself from wrong identification and the tyranny of his self-created thought forms? The answer lies in a shift of focus from the self, as Peter said in the corner, to the group, in a truer identification with the soul and its relation to all souls. The light of the soul, through the agency of the mind, is the great dissipator of glamour. And long ago the Buddha taught the conquering of desire, the noble middle path between the pairs of opposites. In the light of the soul is essential unity. The astral waves subside and the aspirant finds himself at initiation's gate. Man, that is good stuff, isn't it?